Welcome. This is MoneyHeart, where we explore the emotional side of money. I'm Camille Diaz, and today we're discussing creating extraordinary abundance. My guest is Rita Desnoyers Garcia. She has been helping people reach their true potential for over 30 years. She has a BA in psychology from College of the Holy Cross and an MSSW from Columbia University. After a long career as a social worker in New York City and while raising her family, she had a spiritual transformation. Rita is now a spiritual teacher, speaker, life coach, author, comedian, and musician. She's the author of 3 books, Extraordinary Abundance, Outside of the Box Love Experiments, and The Self-Compassion Project. She's also the creator of the Forest Meditations. She lives with her husband and 3 children in New Jersey. Rita, welcome to MoneyHeart.
Thank you so much, Camille. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, very glad to have you on the show. In your bio, you talked about this spiritual transformation. Usually we don't have one of those unless something big happens to us. And I would love to know what happened to you. How did this transformation come about?
Well, it was no lightning bolt moment. The sky did not part, the clouds didn't part the sky, but I did have what was called a come to Jesus moment on a phone call when I had 3 children, ages 4 and under. So I was with kind of like a little preschool in my home, so to speak. It was a little cuckoo crazy. And I decided that I wasn't busy enough, apparently. And so I started my own business selling health and wellness products. And after exhausting everyone in my community and making several enemies doing that, I took a marketing course to learn how to do this to strangers with leads, right, on the phone and then eventually online. I love this course and I took it for a whole year. I was like literally nursing my son while I was listening to, the marketing class. I was so into it.
Right.
And then
that's classic entrepreneur mom, by the way.
Yeah, it was just like Lucy and Ethel in the chocolate factory, putting the chocolate down, if you're old enough to remember that. But anyway.
I do. That's like the one that they always show on repeat for the highlight reels.
It's one of my favorites because it shows the ridiculousness of trying to do spinning all these plates, so to speak.
Right.
So I was doing that, and there were a couple clues that was not going well. One was I was not feeling physically good while I was selling health and wellness products. Now, I don't know about you, but I find that a little ironic and off-putting to people who are thinking of buying your product if you're actively coughing into the phone while trying to sell them.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah. It kind of says maybe your product isn't working the way they might expect.
Exactly.
If you're ill while you're telling them about this wellness product.
Yeah, exactly. It smacked of maybe imposter syndrome or something. But so that was happening. I was also trying to close deals with a toddler on my knee, so obviously distracted.
Right.
Or someone's crying in the background. And even my husband was like, "Are you having a good time with this?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I am so having a good time." Like I was not ready to let go of this. Right.
Yeah.
So, and the reason I was doing it in my mind was I was going to save my family. I was going to retire my husband. We're going to become millionaires. We're going to go on fancy vacations. I kept having this one scene in my head that I was serving these beautiful, whatever food in our backyard on our patio. And I was the hero of the show. Right. And my kids were happier and everyone's great, but it wasn't quite unfolding that way. And so this meeting that I was having, this come to Jesus meeting, culminated because this guy was giving me leads so that I could call people. And he called everyone who was working for him and said, "Guys, I have to tell you, if no one's really closing anyone, and if we don't close anyone in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to have to withdraw my leads. I feel like they're being wasted."
Wow.
And so I'm listening to this and I put the phone on mute and I started to cry because I didn't want them to hear me crying.
Right.
And because everything that I was trying to do was just not working. And what welled up inside me was, "You're a failure. You're just complete failure. You can't do this. This is too much for you. You're not built for this. And frankly, here's 15 other failures to remind you of how much of a failure you are, Yeah. And then, of course, as I'm crying, my kids start crying. Aww. So yeah, it was that time of day when we would have to cry it all out. And then I heard the youngest one in the crib starting to cry. And I was just like, what the heck? This is not what I wanted. Right. And so as I kind of slid my back down the wall and sat, slumped, like, what the heck? I'm so sick of feeling this sense of unworthiness, and I'm trying so hard to be worthy, and I'm trying so hard to be enough. And I just can't be enough anymore. I just, like, even thinking about it, I can feel like the tears wanting to well up a little bit. Right. Yeah. So, and everyone's been that. Everyone's had that experience of, I guess I'm not enough, or I guess I'm not worthy, or I guess I'm not lovable, or I guess I'll always be a failure. I'll never be a success.
I think that's a super common mom feeling. Yes. And it's also a super common entrepreneur feeling. Like, yes, every entrepreneur I talk to has been through some point where things didn't go the way they expected. They don't have the private jet and the vacations and the fancy house. The stuff isn't coming together yet. It doesn't mean it never will, but it certainly isn't right now. And they're tired and stressed out and grumpy. And if you're also a parent, probably moms and dads, I don't think dads talk about it as much as moms do, right, or dads have it too. You have that failure feeling. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing for these kids. I'm not sure if I picked the right school or if we're in the right house. Yep. If I made the right decision when they asked me if they could do whatever it was they wanted to do. Like, we always are second guessing.
All the time. Yeah.
And you're constantly feeling like, am I worthy? Do I deserve it? Is this okay? Am I getting it right? Am I getting some of it right? Any of it right? None of it right? Like, you have no idea. And so when you pile on, entrepreneur and parent and anything else that's going on, it's a lot. It's a lot. I think your story is very relatable, and you are not the only one who has gotten off the phone and cried in the corner and just not known what to do.
And because I think this happens with a lot of women who are intelligent too, not to pat my back for being so intelligent, but I've been always able to figure things out with my mind. I've always been able to figure things out with the brain, right? And I got incredibly rewarded for that on a lot of levels. And here I was, couldn't figure it out. My brain couldn't figure it out, And so I really felt like I was at this pause, if not stop point. And I was talking to someone else about it. And I said, imagine if you're in labor and you don't know you're actually going to have a baby. Like, how would you, being in labor enough is very intense, but imagine you have no idea what's going on. And you're like, I don't even know what's going on. Am I dying? What's going on? Right. I have this big belly and I feel like I'm dying and my whole body's splitting apart. This can't be good. Right. Yeah. So I was in that space for a while where I didn't know that there was a baby on the other side of this. Right. I just knew it sucked. It was intense. I didn't know what to do. My brain was trying to desperately grasp at things to solve the problem. Mm-hmm. So because my brain does what it does, I reached out I had read this book called The Power of Belief by Ray Dodd. Okay. And he is a protege of Don Miguel Ruiz. I don't know if you know him, but he wrote The Four Agreements.
Oh, I know The Four Agreements. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Ray Dodd wrote The Power of Belief, and his protege was this guy named Chris. So he had Power of Belief coaches. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I just need this Power of Belief coach. And they're going to help me close people. They're going to help me with my business, right? I was still like, hang in there, kitty. Right. And so I looked at his picture. I liked his mug, and he had a marketing background. I'm like, this is the guy for me. So we set up the phone call. And meanwhile, I had set up, before realizing that this whole thing was imploding, that we were hiring an au pair for a year to stay with us to help with taking care of the kids. So I was like, oh my God, I can't, my business is failing. And now I'm going to have another expense. What the heck? What am I doing? This is crazy. Yeah. So it was a lot of pressure. So I get on the phone with my coach, Chris, and I'm going on about whatever I'm going on about it. And he says, Rita, hold on one second. Just right now, for this moment, can you be kind and gentle with yourself? And I had two thoughts about that. One was, what? That makes no sense to me. I have never done that in my life. how productive is that? I got a list of things to do, Chris. You're not helping me getting through that list. Right.
Right.
So that
right.
was a very skeptical, like, I don't know what you're talking about. And the other side was like, I'll try it. And so for a full minute or two, I was not a failure. I was just being kind and gentle. And of course I started crying, like weeping, like my bot, like, you know,
the ugly cry.
Your ancestors are crying with you. Yeah.
Yes.
And the ugly cry. Exactly. And I thought, son of a gun, he made me cry. I guess I'm working with this guy. And I hate him for it, but I think this is the person I need to work with. So that was my first act of compassion with myself. And I don't know how long. And to tell you the truth, you know, when I think back to that moment, I thought, no one's ever told me that. I am sure people have told me that in some way or another. I just couldn't receive it.
Right.
I couldn't consider it. I was too like, no, you work harder. You have to work faster.
Yeah.
You figure it out. You know, that was sort of my, and my parents weren't like that necessarily, but I was like that.
But you were like that. I think it goes back to what you brought up, which was brilliant about the intelligence thing. You know, the smarter you are and the more success you've achieved by being smart, then the more you feel like, well, I should be able to figure this out. Clearly, I'm not working hard enough. You know, I just missed a step. Let me go back and circle it again. Like, just all of that. You put so much pressure on yourself, feeling like, I'm a smart person. How come I can't do this? I see other people doing it. What's wrong with me?
Right. And or maybe I'm not as smart as I thought. I better cover that up.
Right.
With acting really smart about this, because I don't want people to know how dumb maybe I really am and don't even realize it. So again, it's that covering, that, you know, covering the wound, compensating. And so I started working with him. I worked with him for 4 years on the phone. I have never physically met him. I love him. Never met him in person. So it can be done. Somewhere in Michigan, having a good life. But anyway, so we worked together, and the first couple months I was just crying half the time I was on the phone with him. I just was like, and then he gently just sort of said, maybe you need to take a pause from your business. And I was like, no, I'm not a quitter. You know, he's like, you're not quitting. You're just taking a pause, because I think you really need to take care of yourself. I don't feel like you're taking care of yourself. That's what you're telling me. So he's like, it's a good thing the au pair is coming. I'm like, no, how am I going to pay her? It's not a good thing. And he's like, have you talked to your husband about it? And I'm like, yeah, he doesn't care, but really, you know, and he's like, if he doesn't care, come on, you know?
Yeah.
So she came, and here she's 20-year-old, beautiful woman from El Salvador. And she's telling me, looking at your schedule, you don't give yourself a lunch break. And I was like, a 20-year-old is telling me that
where's your lunch break?
Where's your lunch break? She's got more sense than I do. She really did. Still does. And so she was great, because she came in and she was able to take care of my kids so I could start meditating, having free time, being able to take a walk, being able to use the bathroom without little fingers underneath pushing notes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That so takes me back to those days.
Right. Are you coming out soon? Right.
One time I had to, like, I don't know where my husband went, but I had to go to the bathroom with one kid on my lap and the other one on the floor at my feet, because otherwise there was, you know, screaming at the top of our lungs happening if they could be on me every second of the day, including bathroom time. Like,
and I didn't wake up on my own. I woke up to the baby. That was how I woke up. So it's kind of, you know, Lucy and Ethel in the chocolate factory once again. So he's like, you really need to take care of yourself. So I started meditating. I started doing all these things. I got a membership at a local gym. So I would go out of the house to do my workouts, and sometimes I would hang out and I journal. I started doing these things that I'd never really done before, you know, and I've been a pretty spiritual person my whole life. And I never really took to meditation because I was too I got to do things, right? So it really helped me focus on being more present. That was another thing my coach introduced me to, was just being present, because he said, what was the best, like, think of a thing that you really loved, a moment, an event or something that you really had a good time, like recently. And I said, oh, I went out to dinner with my husband and this happened and that happened, and it was so good and the food was great and blah, blah, blah. And he said, do you know why that was great? And I said, no, why? He goes, because you were present. You were present. You were taking it all in. And I'm like, all right, beep, back up, buddy. Beep, beep, beep. You told me to be honest with you, right? And he's like, yeah. And I said, I have a running list of to-dos in my head right now. How is present going to help me do that? And he's like, I'm glad you asked. He said, when you are present, you can still do stuff. You're still going to do your to-do list, but you're going to do it with presence. You're going to do it. You're going to be washing dishes, not thinking of 5,000 things, but just washing the dishes. Mm-hmm. You're going to fold laundry, just folding the laundry. You're going to be with your child, just being with your child. Right. And I had no idea what gift that was to me. Not just in richness of life, but that is actually more effective. Right. And I know when you have a bunch of kids, when you have a brood or just one child, they take a lot of your attention and energy.
They do.
But I learned over time that when you actually give them that time and attention, which is what they want, that's all they want. They want presence, acknowledgement, recognition. That's love, right? When they get all that, then they can go and do stuff for a little bit. Yeah. They're not constantly pulling at your skirt.
Right.
And then you're like, stop it, and then that's the attention they get, is stop it.
Right.
Versus
they do the behavior again because they got something.
Something.
Yeah.
Right. So I learned I can give my kids individual attention, and, it wasn't easy at first. I kept forgetting because, once again, I had the big tool, which was the hammer, and everything looked like a nail. And I didn't know, I have some other tools I can try, right, and maybe they work better. Mm-hmm. So I realized that time was very flexible, and that I actually created more time when I was present. Mm-hmm. Like, it was wild and weird.
It is weird.
It is very weird sometimes.
When you do things not distracted, you do them well and you do them quickly, and then they're done.
Yes. And you don't redo them because you didn't do them fully the last time. And right. I think that is a challenge being a woman and a mother, because women's minds tend to multitask. Oh, yeah. And men's tend to be more focused and compartmentalized. I think that's more of a biological factor. I'm sure there are women who are not like that, but yeah. But I certainly was, and I watched my mother, who was an Olympian mother, be able to do, assembly line work, getting the lunches ready, and the octopus, yep. Right? She was the octopus, and she made it look easy. And I was just like, I have half the amount of kids you have, and I'm like, want to hit the bottle, so. And her advice was just like, don't get too drunk. Okay. And I'm like, okay. So
what a cool
that is an issue with a lot of mothers, but I just, I understand why that happens. So, so anyway, back to my spiritual transformation. So I started doing all these practices, being present, meditating, taking care of myself, doing things that enriched my soul, and because I like doing them, and not because I should do them all the time or I'm obligated. So that was another thing. We went through my schedule. I had so much crap in there, excuse the expression, of obligatory stuff, stuff where, well, I'm supposed to do that because I'm a mom, or I'm supposed to be the class parent, or I'm supposed to be and there's nothing wrong with doing any of those things if you want to do them. But what was happening to me was people were asking me to do things. I didn't know how to say no. So I would say yes. And then literally I'd be doing the thing, and I'd be with women who were complaining about the other moms who weren't doing the things they were doing, because they were also resentful that they were doing the things. So it was just sort of like the sea of resentment. And so I had to kind of, woman up and say no sometimes. And the first time I did that, that was like, just put me in a fetal position now, because, and it turned out to not be a big deal. But the first time you do it, it's like,
it feels like a big deal.
Yeah. Even if it's like, thanks, but I can't do that right now. And you're typing it out. And then you're
Right.
like, send it out, and then
Totally
you're
happened
moaning
to
in the
me. I
corner.
had a friend who asked me to be on a nonprofit board with them. And I like the nonprofit. I love my friend. I want to help out. All these things. And I just knew that that was a really active nonprofit and they do a lot of fundraising and they have events. And I was going to be in charge of something and it wasn't going to fit in my world right
Yep.
now and
Yep.
at that time. And so I was just like, oh, I got to
Yeah.
say no. I got to say no. Because
Yeah.
otherwise I'm going to be miserable and I'm going to do a terrible job and something
Yeah.
somewhere is going to get messed up and I'm going to be really unhappy about it. And it's so much better that I didn't do it because I've had a ton of other stuff going on and my kids
Yep.
are teenagers and I don't know why that seems like they're just as busy as they were when they were 4, but they are. And so
Yeah. They need your time and attention.
they need my
So
time and attention. So
yeah.
all of this stuff, and I totally feel that like you feel like you're letting people down because you're such the helper, saver, fix it personality that you're like,
Yes.
"Ah, I'm gonna let everybody down if I say no,
Yeah.
making the cookies for this Saturday."
Yeah. I'm not doing my part. I'm not
Yeah.
enough. I'm not pulling my worth.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing, right? And so, the decision I decided to do for me was, and I realized there are women who love volunteering at school, like they really get a lot out of it. So I let them do it. They want to do it. They're good at it,
Yeah.
much better than I would be. And I decided, if something pops up that's finite, like we need moms to come to the school and take down all the art and organize it. I'm like, sign me up. I can do that for 2 hours and
Yep.
I'm done.
Yep.
And I feel like I have put my time in.
That is a fantastic strategy. And I do the same thing. Now, when I volunteer for things, I don't sign up for an unended position in charge of whatever. I wait until they say, we need people for. And then
Yeah.
I say, I'm open that Saturday. I can go. Or, oh, I'd love to do that. I will go.
Yes.
And then I
Yes.
sign up and I do the thing and I contribute, but I'm not trapped.
Yes.
And I love that. I loved how you strategize that because
Yeah.
it's a fabulous strategy.
And I think the schools, at least in our district, have realized also that sometimes people would rather donate a little money than do all the fundraising and the events and stuff. And so they came up with a no muss, no fuss. Hey, just donate this amount of money and we will not even bother you. And I was just like, are you sure? Yeah. Where do I sign up? Because I'm like, I've, contributed X amount of dollars for instruments for kids who can't have the instruments. Perfect. That doesn't mean I have to show up every Saturday morning and do X, Y, and Z because I don't want to do that.
I'm the same way too. I would, whenever they ask, hey, can you send these supplies or something? I'm like, yes, of course I can send you.
That was another one.
I can totally throw those in the cart this weekend and send them with my kid next week. Not a problem. I'm so into that.
Yes. Extra paper towels, Kleenex, yes, supplies. We used to donate supplies too. And it felt great. So here I am contributing to the school and it feels good and it's easy. So that kind of became my formula, which is it fun and easy, connected and joyful? I'm on it. Now I realize in life, it's not always that way. And I have my own process to deal with that. But if I can, because I realized all of my stress is completely self-created. It's self-created. Every time I'm like, oh my God, I have a thing at so-and-so, it's like, but you made that appointment. So who's to blame here?
Right. And that's true for most of us. It's like all these things. I'm so busy. Well, who's in charge of your calendar? Because you might want to talk to your person.
Exactly. You may want to fire your administrative assistant.
Is it you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, so anyway, I was learning all these things and I started to just become calmer. I started to notice people telling me their beliefs through their stories. Like at first I just thought they were telling me facts about their life. We were catching up. And then I started to listen. I realized they're telling me everything they believe right now about life.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's they believe that their husband is terrible. And sometimes they believe that they're going broke. And sometimes they think they're going to get fired. And sometimes they think they're going to die. And sometimes they're afraid for their mother. And, and I'm like, everyone's telling me their story. And so what I learned to do in those situations, especially if the story was super negative, I would just go, okay. And then I noticed people were not doing that so much to me because I wasn't going, oh my God, that's horrible, blah, 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 blah. I wasn't like buying into their stories so much because I knew it was a story.
Right.
And then you get to a level where you hear someone's story and you're like, I don't even know why they're upset right now. Like even the information they're giving you is like, okay, so let me get this straight. Your kid walked into school, they put their books on the counter and they grabbed a cookie and left the room. Why are you upset? Like, you know what I mean? Have you ever heard that where someone's like, can you believe it? And you're like,
yes. And you're going, that's the worst part right now. Like,
yeah, I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I started noticing this. And I also started noticing that so many women in my neighborhood and in the grocery store were kind of like the Walking Dead. They were like, just like zombies. They had their little baby Bjorns or their strollers and their lattes or whatever. And they were just kind of like, just give me enough caffeine to get through the day.
Mm-hmm.
And they just weren't happy. And I was like, I was like that. And now I'm here and I'm so much happier.
Yeah.
So I emailed about 10 people that I knew. And I said, look, I've done a lot of work on myself, still a work in progress, but I've learned some really cool things that have helped me feel better, more calm, less stressed, blah, 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 blah. Anyone interested in knowing? And 3 or 4 people were like, me, So that became my first group in my living room.
Nice.
And because I had that social work background, I had that knowledge base plus the coaching to be able to kind of deal with the group dynamics and all that stuff. And, made a ton of mistakes, but that's what started the group. And then I started seeing people individually, and then kind of word of mouth happened. And I started different workshops and different ideas. And that's when I started writing guided meditations. And that's where the forest meditations came from. And then I wrote Extraordinary Abundance because it was an area of my life that I just did not feel. I wanted to feel extraordinary abundance, but I didn't quite feel it. And I thought, maybe if I do some studying about this and maybe if I write about it, something will come. And literally a book came out of it, a very small book. It's very little. I forget where it is. It's somewhere up there. And it was attached to my website. So you could do exercises on the website.
Oh, yeah.
But is it okay if I just dive into this book?
Dive into the story. Yeah. I want to hear about this abundance concept for sure. Like, how did you figure it out and how can we all get this for ourselves?
Yeah. So I've never been a person who has been like money, 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 money. I've never been like, except when I was in that wound of I have to make $1 million to retire my husband. Right. I was never like money hungry. I was never like, I was a social worker. So I was never like the highest paid person in the room.
Sure.
And, but I knew it was, that's how the world works, is through money, and it's good to have. And when you don't have it, you definitely feel it. But I never felt abundant. I always felt a sense of scarcity in my life. That sense of like, I better keep going or I'll be on the street, or I better keep going or I won't be able to pay rent, or I better really pull back my budget on that, or I don't want to spend too much. I very much grew up with Depression era parents, so who are very mindful of how much they spend and no waste. You never waste anything. And so I inherited that. And I think there's a positive thing to that. I'm very mindful, we don't throw things out. We try to fix things as much as possible. But on the other hand, it can go too far. And I was definitely going too far. What I was saying was like, I'm not worth new socks. I'll wear these for another 3 years. Yeah. Even though somehow that wasn't going to break the bank if I got some socks,
Yeah, probably okay if you spent $10 on socks.
Right. So I knew there was not a good balance here. And I wanted to explore this idea of abundance. And what I realized was, for me, abundance was more than enough. So here's that enough thing again. So if I don't feel abundant, does that mean that, so I don't feel like there's more than enough? And how is that connected to feeling I am not enough? Right? So I started realizing, well, when you feel that not enoughness, there's not enough time, there's not enough money, there's not enough love, there's not enough food, there's not enough, nothing is enough. There's not enough goodness, you know? And there's always this, in the shadows, this scarcity, fear of scarcity. And so you're always mindful of it. And you're coming from that place. And as I wrote the book, I learned that actually not only am I enough, I am abundance. Like I am the source of abundance, just like you are, right? Like we all are. But we get all this stuff piled onto us over time,
right?
That covers that up. And then we can't, it's like the cloud cover in the sky. We can't see the sun because the clouds are always there. And then we forget the sun exists, right? So I started developing lots of different exercises and practices for myself to remind myself and to support my mind with evidence that not only am I enough, but I am abundance itself, right? I have the divine in me that it produces the abundance, the love, the acceptance, all of that good stuff, but that I had covered it up. So one of the practices that I would do, and I still do, is I go into the woods. We're so lucky where we live. We live right next to a reservation.
Oh, cool.
So it's, 10-minute walk to the reservation. So I go to the reservation, and trees are, my spirit animal. I love the trees. Love the trees.
I love trees too.
Yeah.
Right there with you. Love trees.
Yeah. I love trees for so many reasons. One is they have so many great functions. They have so many great animals, insects. They just house all those things. They're kind of like mothers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not perfect. They're completely imperfect, and yet they're gorgeous.
Right.
And they're very rooted, and yet they reach for the sky. I mean, there's so many metaphors with the trees.
So many. Yeah. Yeah.
And I love the Shel Silverstein book, The Giving Tree. Like,
right. I know, right? Bring tissues. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm in the forest and I'm looking at the trees. And if you allow yourself to imagine you're looking at like a leaf, and you look at the leaf and you see that it's all segmented, really. If you look close enough, and if you used a microscope, you would see that it's so segmented, you can see little individual cells, and then if you look at the cells, there's stuff in the cells, and you could go further and further and further. So there's an abundance. The abundance, it's like a fractal. The worlds inside of worlds inside of worlds, just looking at one little cell on a leaf. And then if you zoom out from that, you have your leaf, and then you see how many leaves are on a branch, and then you see how many branches there are, and then you see how many trees there are. You're just like, you're on the other side of it, right? Of, oh my gosh, there's millions upon millions of this, and this is just one reservation. Yeah. So when you allow yourself to be, and that's what I think the present moment is about. It's not about skimming across the top. It's about going really vertical down into something. So you go really vertical down into the microscopic, and then you go up all the way to the macroscopic, and you see the richness, the extraordinary abundance of just the one moment. And so I do that to show people kind of physical evidence of the abundance that they're living in all the freaking time. If you open your eyes to it, if you're open to it. And I think that's where, if you're focused on the scarcity, you don't see it, the tree, that way. If you're in abundance, you're like, wow, look at this. Yeah. And then you feel it inside yourself, and then you realize you come from that and that you are it. So I know that sounds a little psychedelic, it does sound like something.
But I love it. What a great way to just get yourself out of the one little place where you've gotten stuck.
Yeah, it's literally a different perspective.
Yeah, just change the perspective to something different and consider it from another angle. consider it from that little tiny point, consider it from the
Exactly.
30,000 foot view, all of that. It's just, oh yeah, maybe there are other things going on around there. Maybe there's more going on in me than just this one little piece that I've gotten focused.
Yes. And I think that's what, when we talk about the ego, right? The personality, what we do is we look at this vast sky of stars, but we only see this much. And we go, that's your world.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But you get the whole sky.
Yeah.
You don't even know the whole picture. That's why you're so miserable. It's like going through labor and not knowing you're having a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You have a very limited scope about what the larger picture is. And when you have a very limited scope, it's very easy to panic.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Or think this is it, or think, I'm doomed, or whatever.
Right.
And even, my view of death is there's a whole other thing going on after that.
Yeah.
And yet we're so, scared of it.
Right.
We don't even know what we're scared of.
Yeah. Well, we only know what's over here right now. So that's, we tend to always be scared of things that are new and different and outside. And we can't even get information on that. It's one of those where, a lot of things that are happening in the world, you can get information on somebody who's doing a little bit better in the abundance realm than you are. You can go talk to them. How's it going? How are you thinking? All that. It's really hard to talk to dead people and ask them, what's it like over there?
Yeah. Well, you could do a little seance or something, a little Ouija.
Yeah.
Ouija board.
Yeah.
But it's much easier when people are around and ask them. Yeah.
A little easier.
Well, as a parent, one of the things that I pat myself on the back for is I somehow got this idea that talking to people who are older than me, who have raised children, is a really good idea. And it turned out to be a supremo idea because I learned about perspective, when I'd be like, my kid's doing this and blah, blah, and da, 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 da. And they'd always be like, I get it. And it's a wrinkle.
It's going to be fine.
It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And they'd always have like a bigger, more horrific story to tell. And the kid was okay. And you're like, wow. And I go, okay, all right. So having that different perspective is so huge.
It is. It really is. It's just, I had the same thing happen to me. I've got a couple mentors who are older than me. And when I talk about things that are happening with my kids, they're like, just hang in. It's going to be okay. And then I'll tell them something like, oh, you did the right thing. It's going to be fine. I'm like, oh, thank goodness somebody's there.
Right.
Yeah.
And, sometimes for me, it's, you know what, you did the wrong thing and it's still okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like maybe that wasn't but you did the best you could with the information you had and the history you have. And that's just the way, and maybe it can be rectified. Maybe it can't be, but that's part of the story now. And that's the way it is.
It's just going to be there. It's okay.
Yeah. It's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay.
I have 100%. That's, one of the things that I remind myself in my mind is like, look, you are batting 1,000 on still being alive right now. Okay. Like no matter what, you're still here.
Yes.
And better for it. And so pretty much the evidence goes that way. So whatever is going to happen, something could happen. You might not get your preferences, which by the way, your preferences don't really matter because half of them are based on looking at this part of the sky versus this part of the sky. So if you don't get your preferences, it's not that big a deal. Something even better may happen.
Yes. Yes. I love that point because it's so many times that, it's one of those, be careful what you wish for because you might get it. And then, you get something and you're like, oh, well, that wasn't what I thought at all, but it's way better, like way better. So many times the thing shows up and it's way better than what I thought it was going to be because I, like you said, had that little limited tiny view and I wasn't seeing the bigger picture. And then whatever it is happens, I'm like, oh, well, this is just outstanding. Thank you. So
absolutely. Yeah. And so sometimes I say, so this or something better. I'm open.
Ooh,
I'm open to something better. Let it be this or something better. And so sometimes it means you're not going to get it and you're going to be like pounding at the door that won't open. And then you're like, hey, stop pounding. Look, go through that window.
Yeah. 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 One of those, if you would just turn around and look to the side, you would see there's like an archway. You don't even have to open it or just walk right under. Just walk right under.
Right. And I think as mothers, we see this in our children. Have you ever seen your little one do this?
Oh,
They
yeah.
have a toy or something and they're struggling with it. And all you have to do is like literally like, boop, and they're okay. Like
Yep.
just that little tiny bit. And they are like freaking out.
Yep.
And you're watching and you're like, do I do something? Do I not do something? And sometimes I've done it and sometimes I let them go. But I think, how many situations in my life am I doing exactly that?
Right.
That is just like, put the toy down, walk away, take a walk, come back and look at it again, or
Yeah.
just move it a little this way, or that toy doesn't do that. Go to that toy,
Right. Make a switch. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this has been such helpful information. Tell us, what are you most excited about right now?
Well, I'm really excited about some master classes that I'm doing that are for free.
Nice.
They're the same masterclass, but I'm offering them 3 different times. So the first one is on July 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then I have one on July 26th at noon Eastern. And then I'm doing my first in-person masterclass in about 3 or 4 years, right in my hometown in New Jersey. It's all on my website. And I should tell you what the masterclass is about, by the way. It's called From Chaos to Calm Clarity. And it's my system, my process of how to take any situation or relationship you're in and to be able to navigate through it. So by the time you get to the end of the process, you're feeling more calm, you're feeling confident, you're actually maybe excited about what's going to happen next.
Uh-huh.
And it's given you a new perspective and a new frame of what's really going on. And you get to understand yourself better and what motivates you.
Oh, I love that. Will you be offering more of them in the fall? Because this episode may not come out until sometime in the fall.
That workshop is going to be, or I call it a masterclass, it's a workshop. Yeah, I'm going to be doing that periodically because it introduces a course that I do periodically. So,
love it. Okay, so we can just jump on your website anytime and see when the next one's coming up.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This has been fabulous.
Thank you, Camille.
Yeah. If you want to get in touch with Rita, all you have to do is jump on her website. It is becomingawake.com. You can also join her Facebook group, which is Calm Mom Alliance. There we go. So search for that on Facebook. I'll put a link in the show notes, and also Becoming Awake on YouTube, and we'll link that as well. Thank you to all of our listeners and viewers. I'm your host, Camille Diaz. I'm a business optimization coach, financial educator, author, and speaker. You can contact me and find out what I'm up to through my website, CamilleDiaz.com, and follow me on social media at Cam Unfiltered. Be sure to follow MoneyHeart at MoneyHeart Show, and our website is MoneyHeartShow.com. Rita, would you like to share today's money mantra with us?
Yes.
Awesome.
My mantra is, I am open to money appearing in all forms and in all ways.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Camille.